It turns out that sometimes a game mechanic needs to marinate for a decade or two before it finally resonates with you. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and welcome back to the channel.
Unicorn Overlord.
Hello everyone, if you enjoy what I do, my coverage of Unicorn Overlord, other strategy RPGs, or the gaming sphere in general, and you enjoy my style of presentation and long-form, in-depth discussion and guides, then a like on this video and a subscription to the channel would be very much appreciated. Thank you so much. Welcome, my friends, to your ultimate basics guide to tactics in Unicorn Overlord. Now, when I say tactics, I'm not talking about general tactical gaming, something like Final Fantasy Tactics or anything like that. No, tactics in Unicorn Overlord are a mechanic, and they're one of the most interesting ones in the game. If you're familiar with Final Fantasy XII, for my enjoyers out there, you might know it as the Gambit system, but it's even more involved than that. And while back in the day, when I was younger, I didn't enjoy the Gambit system, I absolutely enjoy this iteration of it with the tactics system here. It is a mechanic that allows you to personally design the behavior of every single soldier in every single unit in your army. What attacks will they use? Your choice. What support skills will they cast? That's up to you as well. Who will be the target of their affections or their ire? Really, you're the only one who can say. It's truly unlike anything I've ever seen in a strategy RPG like this before, and I do really believe it's going to be one of the biggest factors that lead to your success or your failure on the battlefield. So, how does it work? Essentially, using tactics is like programming your units with some very simple if-then commands. If it's your turn to attack, then hit the lowest health enemy. If an ally has less than 50% health remaining, then cast heal on them, things like that. It's a system that lets you pull each member of your army into the war room and tell them what their exact role is, and it's something you can manipulate at will to exact levels of specialization. Every soldier has a list of 8 tactics that can be set, which you'll split between their active and passive skills. Each one can then be set to any offensive or support ability the unit in question has, including multiple copies of the same ability. Now, I hear you. Tom, you might ask, why would I need multiple copies of the same ability? Well, don't worry, dear viewer. We'll talk about that. Just keep in mind that a well-designed set of tactics will unquestionably make or break every single unit you have. So knowing how the system works and how to manage it will be absolutely vital to your success, especially if you play on Expert like I do. This is doubly true since you have full access to the entire system from the moment the game starts. Every priority target, every unit type, and every HP threshold are yours to mess with. It is a lot to take in at first, I fully admit. So let's take it in pieces, shall we? I'm learning with you all, so taking the time to talk through it kind of helps me as well. When designing a tactic set for a member of a unit, the most basic thing to keep in mind is the order a soldier will attempt to execute its skills in. This is the most basic of basics. I know, if you are already experimenting with the system, bear with me here. Gotta make sure that the foundation is solid for everyone watching, no matter what the skill and knowledge level, alright? We'll use my witch Yana here as an example. The top of the list is what Yana will see first when deciding how to act in a battle. Slot 1 will be checked first. If the conditions for activation are fulfilled, Yana will take this action on her first turn in initiative order. If those conditions are not met, she'll then check the next slot. This process will repeat until she has no points left or the battle ends, whichever comes first. This is why I have multiple copies of her Ice Bolt spell equipped with different conditions, so I can be sure she'll target the appropriate enemy for whatever situation she finds herself in. First off, I wanted to freeze the fastest enemy in the back row of the enemy unit to hopefully take them out of the fight while her teammates clean up other targets. If the back row has already been dealt with, I have her set to target exclusively armored soldiers. This way, she can freeze a potential body blocker, leaving other enemies vulnerable to further attacks. Finally, if all else fails and other targets aren't present, I have her set to blast a low health enemy to finish them off, reducing the enemy force in the process. It's a simple but effective setup, but that's only because she only has one active attack at the moment. After all, once a witch hits level 10, she gets the magic missile spell that has an entirely different array of use cases and as such, targeting conditions. This is why it's so important to get a grasp of the system early so you can better adapt as your options grow. Note as well that all these rules apply to both active and passive skills as well. For example, Templar Joseph's heal can be set to have priority over his attack if you'd like by placing it in the first slot. So long as its conditions are fulfilled and he has passive points remaining, he'll heal over using his attack every time. With this in mind, make sure you've got your priority set properly for the role you want for any given soldier. If you really want Joseph to be out there smashing foes more than healing, consider dropping his heal to the bottom of the priority order or even disabling it entirely if you don't make a more complex condition setup for it, of course. We're going to talk about those in a second. Finally, for this section, we do wind up having a bit of a wrench thrown in things when passive skills show up that have their own activation timing. What do I mean by that? Well, let's take, for example, a fighter's arrow guard. It doesn't care where in the priority order it is. If your fighter has the PP needed to activate it, and someone decides to pop a shot at your Griffin Knight, it will activate and throw him in front of the shot to block it. I call these reactions much like those in D&D, and they work the same way. They don't care about initiative, or order of combat, or your overall programming of a given character. All they see is that character's resources to activate their skills, the built-in requirement of the skill, and any conditions that are applied to that skill in particular. This does mean that you can have a dedicated bodyguard for your flying units in a squad by, say, setting arrow guard to only target your flying allies, which is pretty nice. It's a convenient way to make sure a section of the unit will always perform a specific way. You will leave your other squaddies out in the cold, of course, but you can at least guarantee that your fighter will take the chance to cover your Griffin, which is very important. All this is to say, don't worry about these reaction style abilities in your priority order. They're rebels. They kind of play by their own rules. We spoke a little bit about different conditions that can be set in the previous section when discussing Mayana and her different variants of Ice Bolt, but the condition system is a whole beast that needs to be closely examined due to the number of options it gives you. First off, if you're familiar with the Gambit system from FF12, this is even more specific. As every skill in Unicorn Overlord has 2 conditions you can set for it, you can make very precise commands. Take, for example, this Lex build I have going on. As a frontline tank, I want him to be able to heal himself as needed instead of relying solely on his squad mate Chloe's end of battle first aid. So, I gave him the Sanguine Blade, a magical sword that I bought from a shop, which gives the wielder a life-draining attack. However, I also do want him to use his Warding Slash skill to buff his own defense, especially since Warding Slash and Sanguine Blade deal the same damage, and the life drain is kind of useless if he's already in good health. And, of course, also he's the tank. Having increased defense kind of help him not lose his HP, right? Well, how do we do that? The answer is conditions. For priority 1, I've set Sanguine Attack, as I want to make sure that Lex heals himself as soon as he needs to. In condition 1, I set him to target the highest HP enemy to ensure he does as much damage as possible, and as such heals as much as possible. After all, can't really drain HP effectively off someone who only has 5 left to their name. To ensure he only does this as needed, I then set the second condition if own HP is under 50%. This way, every time Lex goes to attack, he'll check his HP pool, and if he's doing okay, he'll then move to using Warding Slash. It's a simple setup to be sure, but it shows why having 2 conditions you can set is so powerful. In Final Fantasy XII, you can only set 1 condition per gambit, so a setup like this would be far harder to make work. Unicorn Overlord made it far more elegant, and, to me, more interesting. Now, that said, elegance does not mean it's simple. I mean, look at this list of conditions here. I'm not going to read every individual one, but as a quick overview of the tools we have at hand, we'll run through the list of categories at the very least. Formation and situation involves placement on the battlefield as well as the time of day. Combatant type covers every type of character in the game and lets you set how strict the condition is. HP gives you a suite of health states for every need, as does the AP and PP category. Combatant status focuses on buffs, debuffs, and status effects. Attack type and unit size are pretty self-explanatory. Own condition lets you choose cool options like if you're buffed, or even what action in the current combat the character is on, and the same goes for the own HP, AP, and PP categories. Enemies present specifies actions to take if a specific enemy type is in the fight, without necessarily needing you to target them directly, which is an important distinction to make in certain cases. And high and low stats focus on priority targets based on what they're strong or weak against. It is truly an incredible level of depth, and we ran through that pretty quick, but if you go into any of these categories and look at all the options that are there, you just have a full set of AI programming at your fingertips, essentially. I'm sure it does seem daunting at first, yes, but it is so satisfying once it starts to click, I assure you. Like I said, I'm absolutely still learning, even as I say that, so I can't wait to see how it finally all fits together for me and for you guys. You can even save your custom templates to switch to on the fly if you happen to have a couple different roles for a given character or class. If you, like me, are someone who likes to switch around gear and builds on the regular, try out different things, this can be a handy way to not lose a build that you particularly like, or even if you want to, transfer it to another character of the same class. This is all the more handy given our last topic of this video. You can change all of these actions and conditions on the fly in battle, even right before you start a fight with an enemy squad. You know the old saying, no plan survives contact with the enemy? In Unicorn Overlord, that's not quite true. While, yes, not every strategy you conjure up is going to work out how you expect, Lex's lifesteal build targeting the highest HP enemy isn't going to work if the highest HP enemy is a hoplite that's just going to tank the attack. You do have a fancy little trick up your sleeve. You can essentially stop time, pull your units into the war room in the middle of battle, and give them a whole new suite of orders to deal with the specific fight they're about to enter into. What do I mean by this? Well, there's a little option right here in the pre-fight screen that allows you to fully tweak the customization settings for your squad, down to all of their actions and their actions associated conditions. If there's an enemy archer, but your fighter doesn't have arrow cover set to protect your mage or flyer, well, just go pop into the menu real quick and change it. One of your units low on HP and at risk of getting downed in the first round of action, well, just switch your Hoplite's guard targeting to cover them specifically. If it all feels like cheating, I kinda agree. It certainly makes it very easy to accommodate anything that the game throws at you, but it also allows you to do it for a reason. You can still only work within the restrictions of what your unit as a whole can do, and you designed it and tossed it into whatever situation it's in. And it is very possible to get it into a situation that no amount of condition tweaking can save them from. This is a powerful tool, to be sure, and one that you should absolutely be making use of, but it is by far not the end-all, be-all. Congratulations! You have now graduated from basic training for tactics and conditions in Unicorn Overlord. As I said near the top, this is bar none the single most important mechanic to understand about the game. Once you do, it's going to make your experience 100 times better. I know we quickly did a run through of all the different things to understand here, but that's because this isn't an in-depth guide, right? It's presenting what can otherwise be an array of menacing, daunting menus with a ton of different things to read, and condensing it into a form that lets you understand what it is that you're doing without holding your hand and walking you through every single thing that you can possibly do with it. I can get into more in-depth things, and I absolutely will do so as we put together build videos for different units and different characters, but I want to just get things out there that people can kind of start chewing the fat on a little bit and building their own understanding of systems before we do. Also, as I said, I'm still learning as well, so if there's something I've said in this video that you don't believe works exactly as described, strike up a conversation in the comments. If you're right, I'll be sure to correct myself in future videos and streams. There's a couple things in my previous video showing off some of my favorite builds from my initial demo runs of the game, where people were pointing out small issues with my conditions or the way I had things prioritized that were causing inefficiencies or things to not quite work how I was expecting them to work, and I've since gone and fixed them. So thank you guys for that. We're all learning together on this, even if I'm presenting information in a way that I hope is condensed and more understandable for all of y'all. With that said, though, I hope that you all enjoyed. If you have any questions, feel free to ask here in the comments or in my Discord. Again, my name has been Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman. Please have a good night, stay safe and healthy out there, and remember, as always, be good to each other. Bye now.